Today we're doing a comparison of the different HR units from the HR600 versus the HR500 versus the HR300 versus the HR230. So you better strap in. There's a lot to go through. We'll do the best we can to make it as clear as we can. So right off the bat, let's talk about one of the most important things, ozone output. So with the HR600, we're looking at 20% more ozone overall compared to the 500. The 500 has got hyper boost mode, which the 600 has as well, but that's 25% more ozone than the 300. The 300 is 45% more than the 230. If I had one more here, the 230 is technically 30% more than the HR200. It's, the one before that. So again, we're looking at 45% more ozone on the 300. The HR500's got hyper boost mode, which is 25% above that. The 600 also has hyper boost mode, but this whole unit is another 20% above that. So there's a big array of ozone outputs. Obviously, when you step up from one to the next, you're getting more horsepower and or more ozone output. The other big change with the HR600 when it comes to producing the ozone is the HR600 has a replaceable coil. So like you saw, you can literally, it's got these two clips that you pinch together and it literally just slides right out. So you can purchase extra coils. So before, if you had your ozonics unit, and again, after a couple seasons, you just noticed it wasn't producing as much ozone, you had to send that ozonics into us and do a paid refurbishment, which the bad thing about that is you didn't have your ozonics. So if you were trying to hunt, you were going without it. Now you can have one of those replacement coils with you literally in the field. You could replace it in the tree stand if you wanted to. Again, that's different than the 500, the 300, and the 230, where you can still send the unit into us and do a paid refurbishment. But the great thing is that HR600 comes with that replaceable coil, so you can have extra just in case, like you said, that coil starts to get dirty, you drop it and it looks like a dust bowl comes out the front of it, you can replace that coil yourself. Now that we've talked about ozone outputs, let's talk a little bit about modes. So one thing that you're going to find on all four units is standard mode and boost mode. Standard mode is for ground blinds, boost mode is for tree stands, or standard mode's for a closed air environment, boost mode's for an open air environment. So right here, standard boost. They also all have dry wash mode, okay? That can be used in conjunction with the dry wash bag. When you jump up from the 230 to 300, that's where we're at on the modes. When you get to the 500, we also have the hyper boost mode, which again, like we talked about a minute ago, 25% more ozone here. And then you're gonna have standard boost, hyper boost with the 500 and the 600. The other thing that you have the ability to do with the 500 and the 600 through the app is the locker mode, which works in conjunction with the Ozonics One locker. So to reiterate that, again, standard boost dry wash on all of them. When you jump up from the 230 to 300, then on the 500 and 600, you get the hyper boost mode. You also get the locker mode with the app. So next, let's jump into the batteries and charging and runtime. So to start at the top, we have our HR600. This has our new HR600 XL battery. You can see comparatively to the 500 and the 300, it's a different shape, right? This is more of a long rectangle, more of a square. It's just an entirely new battery on the HR600. Let's just talk about the physical look of them. The 300 and the 500 batteries, very similar. Like we said, HR600, you get an XL battery. The HR500, you get an XL battery. The HR300, you get a standard battery. On the HR230, you also get a standard battery, but it's a different shape. It's more of a rectangle, okay? That's our 230 battery. And again, this comes with a standard battery. So now let's talk about runtime. Right off the bat with the new HR600, you're talking about 30% more runtime comparatively to the HR500. So what that equates out to is on standard mode, you're getting 13 hours, boost mode, you're getting 10 hours, and hyper boost mode, you're getting 9 hours. If you look at the 500 and the HR300, well, let's just go the HR500 first because you get the XL battery, which is, again, on standard mode, that's 10 hours. On boost mode, that's 8 hours. On hyper boost, that's 6 hours. So when you start to look at the HR500 compared to the HR600, it is a big step up with 30% more runtime. If you look at the 500 compared to the 300, you get the standard and the boost. You don't have the hyper boost, But this comes with a standard battery. That's only a 4-hour battery. So we're talking about 5 hours on standard mode and 4 hours on boost mode. That runtime is equivalent when we talk about the 230. 5 hours on standard, 4 hours on boost. So as you go up in the units, the runtime increases. The 230, you get a standard battery. The 300, you get a standard battery. The 500, you get an XL battery. The 600, you get an XL battery as well. But again, 30% more runtime with this new HR600 XL battery. We talked about the batteries. Now let's talk about the charging. So the big thing right off the bat that's different about the HR600 is that it has internal charging. So it's got a charge port on the back that you plug your AC cord and your power supply into, and that's how you're going to charge your HR600. And again, that's the same AC cord and power supply from the 500 and the 500 and the 300. So on the 500 and the 300, you get your AC cord, your power supply, and then you get your charger cup, okay? From there on the 230, it's our original charger on the 230. So again, just to kind of go through it the other way, the 230, you have our original charger. The 300 and the 500 has our AC cord, power supply, and charger cup. And then the HR600 has internal charging that uses the AC cord and the power supply. Let's talk about mounting system options. With the HR600 and the HR500, you're getting the SmartR mounting system and the T-handled overmold tree screw. With the HR300 and the HR230, you're getting our original mounting system. The HR300 and the HR230 also come with the blind bracket. The other thing to mention about the mounting systems, you can upgrade the 230 and the 300 and use the SmartR mounting system. Obviously, on all 4 units, you're going to connect the easy mount on the back of the unit. Let's talk about the size and dimensions of each Ozonics unit. So you can see there's kind of a bit of a look difference from the 230 to the 300, 500 platform, and then the new HR600. So if I just compare these right off the bat, you can see that the HR600 is a little bit longer, but then it's also a skosh narrower than the HR500 or the HR300. When it comes to, the height, very, very similar. Again, there's obviously, it's an entirely new design on this HR600. And again, it just looks and feels a bit different. Talking about the feel as well, the HR600 has a ton of overmold on the top, which makes it great and easy to hold on to. HR500 has overmold, but not quite as much as the 600. The HR300 actually has more overmold than the 500, and the HR230 doesn't have any overmold. The biggest thing I'll say about that overmold that I really like is when you're pulling the Ozonics in and out of your backpack, you can hear, like if I just take my fingernails against this, and I do that here, you just don't hear anything. It's just way quieter to the touch. You follow me with that overmold. So that's the nice thing about that. The other thing to mention about the size and just the appearance of the units is the layout of the units. When you look at the 230, the 300, and the 500, they're all laid out and set up very similar in the fact that the battery's in the bottom and the buttons and your light indicators are on the front. So your air comes in the bottom and your ozone goes out the front. Same thing on the 300, same thing on the 500, right? So you've got your battery here, you're pulling in the air and it's exhausting the ozone out the front, your buttons and lights on the front. The HR600 is a whole new animal. We're not pulling the air in the bottom anymore, we're actually pulling it in off the top. The fan has been completely redesigned, so when this air comes in, it pulls the air in and it pushes it back out past that coil and exhausts it out the front. The other big thing that's different about the layout is instead of the buttons on the front, the buttons are on the bottom. So you've got your power mode, light indicator buttons all, and your indicator lights are on the bottom as well. So that's a huge change from an HR500, right? When you look at the air coming in the top and coming out on the front on the HR600, where it's coming in on the bottom and coming out on the front on the HR500. And then obviously you can see the difference in where the lights are as well. The other thing about the appearance as well is the HR600 has 2 red LEDs on the bottom, just like the HR230, but the 300 and the 500 don't have the red LED lights. The other thing to mention about the setup and kind of layout of the units, we're looking at 4 buttons on the 230, 2 buttons on the 300 and the 500, and we're looking at 3 buttons on the 600. Again, power, mode, light button, just power and mode button, and power, mode, light, and battery indicator on the 230. The other thing to talk about when you're looking kind of under the hood of the units is the app and remote compatibility. So we're looking at app and remote compatibility with the 600 and the 500, but they're not app compatible on the 300 and the 230. With the app compatibility as well, on the HR600, when you have the app downloaded, you'll see that it has a light indicator or a light button, so you can turn the lights on through the app. The 500 doesn't have the lights, so you're not turning them on. These both have the locker mode on the app as well that works in conjunction with the Ozonics One Locker. With the app, you can also turn the unit on and off, you can switch modes, and you can also see your remaining runtime on your battery. I know we covered a lot in this video comparing the 600 to the 500 to the 300 to the 230, but I think it's really important because I think everybody, the unit, the Ozonics unit that may be right for you very well could be the 600, or it could be the 300, or it's the 230, maybe it's the 500. I think what we always want to make sure of is that you really purchase and use the unit that really works best for you in the situation that you hunt. If you're a type of person that you exclusively hunt out of blinds, the 230 is a really, really great option. Again, there are things that you might have to think about. You're only get a 4-hour battery. You know what I mean? You are on the lower end of the ozone output comparatively. But again, if you're hunting in a ground blind, you don't really need all that extra ozone. You know what I mean? You're going to be running it on standard mode anyway. When you start to look at the 300 and the 500, again, great units for an open air environment. Being able to have that extra ozone output, especially on the 500 with the hyper boost mode, 25% more. The other thing is if you're like, man, I really want that extra battery, you get the 8-hour battery here comparatively to the 4-hour on the HR300. And then when you look at the new HR600, it's really the best of all of it smashed together. So again, we kind of have a little bit of everything. I always used to say like good, better, best. Now we've got good, better, best, and like unbelievably awesome. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, give us a call at 979-285-2401 or check us out at ozonicshunting.com. Thanks again and good luck out there.